Hello, Jim Howard here in Fort Worth, Texas. Today's date, it's May 25th of 2022, and it's 10 p.m. at night. I'm not even sure that I'm going to use the intro for this video. I think I'll just upload it here, and I hope to make this quick. Today I received 3 sheets for my bed. They came in, and then 24 pack of Coke. What else? 3 sheets, 24 pack of Coke. Anyway, tomorrow, I'm getting a chair. I think I've had the same one. Let's see. Go to Amazon. Go to orders. Okay. This is Amazon's one that they list as what? They're basic or something rather, and it had a whole bunch of people have purchased it. Over 20,000 ratings. And I see I purchased it on May 25th of, no, that's today, or yesterday, or whatever. So I was thinking I had purchased, I probably have purchased it before, one close to it. It, in the ratings, reviews or whatever, it gets a lot of, even though it has 4.5 stars, it gets a lot of negative comments. It's going to be really difficult for me to put it together. I mean, I've put them together, a whole bunch of different ones together, and my son has helped me in the past, my grown son. He's not going to be able to help me this time. With my arthritis and everything, it's going to be difficult to put it, difficult to put it together, but I'll get it done. I moved things around a little bit here again today. Let's see. I've got my whiteboard up. That was up yesterday. I said this yesterday, by the way. This camera. This Avery Media. Oh man, does it run hot? Let's see, my weight's 236. Blood pressure is 161/79. My ham radio license is going to expire at the end of this year. I'll have to renew that. I took my morning meds, and I took my PM meds. I need to list my doctor's appointments up here. I just haven't got around to it. I can go to the medical site and get that information there. I think I've got a card here or two someplace. I need to set up a hospital go bag. So I'll be ready to go. Got some, I purchased these. I've always liked magnets and solar cells, even when I was in grade school or whatever. I would play around with solar cells. from Radio Shack. I can remember, I shouldn't, of course I was in grade school. First transistor that you could, well, first transistor that I really knew of that you could buy, CK722, I think. And I played around with it, made a few little things or whatever. Then I took the leads off of it and shoved it into a AC wall plug, not intending to, well, I expected it to blow up and everything, but I mean, I wasn't doing it for that reason. I just thought, what's going to happen, you know? Maybe this will supercharge it or something. I think that's it for up here. Except I want to warn you people. This says warning, protected by Pinkerton. So don't try anything. And then this over here sign says warning, protected by the William J. Burns International Detective Agency. I worked, of course, well, for others too. You know, I worked as a welder. I worked for the post office for a while. I worked, you know, worked a lot of jobs for many years. My wife and I, back and then, we had a tropical fish shop for 4 years, and then I had a private security patrol service for a year. That was really, when you looked in the, you know, like yellow pages or whatever. I don't think you people know what, young whippersnappers probably don't know what yellow pages are or where. It was plain to me that that was going to be a big business, and so, and I had been working. Well, that's before I started working for hospitals, but I'd been working contract security at different locations, and so the private patrol service was a lot of work, but I did it the right way. You know, I took an area, and that's the area that I signed people up for to patrol their business, and I did a really good job, and the customers were really, you know, really happy with me. The problem was we had an old car that I was using for the patrol service, the only car we had, and there was wear and tear on it, and we were taking in enough that we could, you know, pay the fees that we needed to pay, a surety bond which went to protect the Board of Police Commissioners that had been being sued for some reason by somebody, all that type of stuff, but we weren't taking in enough money to replace our vehicle. And if you're patrolling, you know, 7 days a week, all night long, it's a lot of wear and tear on the vehicle. And I knew that, you know, there wasn't any way that, so we just decided, and then I ended up going to work for hospital security and worked 30 years. At the same time, though, for a while, quite a while, I worked contract security also. And had some interesting jobs. I actually worked for the mafia. You know, I didn't do anything, you know, illegal. You know, they had a business, car wash business. They owned some car washes, and then they serviced them, and they sold them the supplies also and whatever. But they had a bunch of mobile portrait studios, trailers, and actually they'd advertised in the paper for a photographer. Now I'd always been interested in photography, and well, I was just always interested in photography. And I owned a bunch of different, cameras. And they advertised for, it was unusual. I saw that ad, photographer, and I thought, well, I'm not, really qualified, but let me go see what they want. I went down. I'm not sure if the movie The Godfather I'm not sure when that came out. But when I went in, and it's not, let me adjust this camera that drives me, it's tilted a little bit. Okay. Okay. Let me come down a little bit. I think that's as far as it's going to come down with adjusting it on the back. Anyway, I went in, and I'm not sure if Godfather movie had been out or if it was later on that came out, but I went in, and there's these Italian guys sitting there, smoking cigars. I guess this is going to make me prejudiced or something, I don't know. I went in, I thought, I think this is the mafia, to myself, And they said, well, we don't know why we advertise for a photographer. We've got, I forget how many it was, like a dozen mobile portrait studios. I said, what are they, And, it was a trailer. They showed it to me, a trailer. And you took pictures. Wasn't exactly black and white, like this big. And you developed them there. And and then you took it out. You put it in a what do they call it? A white matting, around it. And then you took it out to. Now they didn't have any operational, You took it out, and you put it. There was a frame on the wall in the trailer, and you slide the matting, and you said, well, you really should have matting to protect this, and then. Look how good this, and the people were, a lot of them would buy a frame for it. Anyway, they said, we've got how many of these things, and they're not booked. And I said, well, how do you, and they didn't spend much time at all. They spent and I never thought of myself as a salesman at all. I thought, no way, But I asked a few questions, and they said, well, you need to book these into shopping centers and places like that. And they, gave me some not very minimal information. And I said, well, can I go out now and try to sign up? They said, yeah. So I took a little bit of whatever they had, pamphlets, that kind of stuff, went out. Went to a small shopping center, and then I went to another shopping center, and I signed both of them. And when I went, I went to the shopping center and went into one of the businesses there, small businesses, I think it was a barber shop or something. And the guy said, oh, this has to be worked through the mall or the guy we elected, or whatever. And so I said, well, went down and went in, and I said, I did the pitch, I said, now I talked to these guys and they want it, and I talked to these other people, they wanted it. And they said, okay, so I set that up. Anyway, I went back to these guys and said, okay, got 2 locations for the trailers, to move in tomorrow or whatever. And they said, okay, well, they owned, like I said, for cars, a place to have your car washed. But they also sold the supplies. They also had guys there who repaired the car washes if they, and so they had them haul the trailer out and to where I told them to put it. And now, of course, we could plug into a wall outlet if they would let us, which generally I think they always did. maybe except one time I remember that they brought a generator out, plugged it in, hooked it up. Then I ended up having to hire the two people. One was a married couple, and to run the so I had to show them how to do that. And then had a bunch of things I had to do, but I enjoyed doing it. But eventually, well, then like this couple I hired in, when I went, hey, when I went by, you need any more supplies? And they told me what they needed, and then I said, now, did you get your pay? They said, no. Because I just peeled off the money. Okay, here's your thing. Now, I should have been I put one of the trailers into Raytown, a small town there. It's Kansas City, Missouri, but then you have Raytown, you have Leesom, you have all these other towns that are, around. And but I put it into Raytown, and then the next day, or maybe 2 days, I got a report that it had been bombed with a pipe bomb. All they did was just break the window on the front door and some other stuff. And I didn't know, well, I never knew for a long time until many years later, I think, when I watched, The Godfather, or watched other things on, cable TV, or maybe on even YouTube. I might have learned that, that I guess what happens in the that type of world is, I guess Raytown was in somebody else's, that was their area, and I didn't know anything about anything having to do with, the mob. I guess what I should have done is told these other people, well, they should, when I said, hey, you need to pull the trailer out to, they should have made their contact with the other family, and things should have been worked out, but I didn't know that. And I guess they thought, if I can get away with it, so anyway, I pulled the trailer out of there. Anyway, I've had a lot of jobs, and some of the qualities, or some of the things I found out that I could excel at it, and I had no idea that I could. And nobody, I guess, when I was growing up had ever said, hey, you're really good at this, or you're really good at that, at that, or something. And so turns out I was a good salesman. Maybe people could tell I was kind of honest and that type of stuff. There for a while I was selling business cards, letterheads, that type of stuff. That was right after we sold the tropical fish shop. And that was interesting because back then, maybe still are, I think things have changed. There were magazines, a whole bunch of magazines, maybe there still are, income opportunities, how to make money, all these kind of magazines. And in all of those, there was a company, maybe more than one, who did printing. And so you could send off for a catalog, and it would, the catalog would come in. And what I did is, what was interesting is they, like 1,000 business cards or 500 or whatever sales you made, well, let's talk about me, whatever sales I made, maybe it would be a $2 amount for a 500 business cards, or, my commission or something. I'd go to my mailbox, and they paid they didn't send one check for all the stuff. I'd go to my mailbox, and there'd be 12 envelopes there. Remind me of a Steinfeld episode. Later on, Anyway, there was these checks there'd be checks for, I'd open it up at $2, to open it up, $6, whatever. That was kind of interesting. Now the mobile portrait studio, I'm not sure who called me, but I guess it would be the FBI. I'm not sure. Anyway, these guys were not paying Social Security taxes on their employees. They weren't paying, I don't know what taxes they had to pay, but they weren't paying them, and the government came in and took the mobile trailers. Then right after that, I got a call from Chicago, somebody with an Italian accent. And he said, hey, except with an Italian accent, we heard that you were, well, we have some trailers here. We have some of those trailers here. And we pay you, for your hotel room, and we'll pay you to come up here and show us how you do it. And my wife at that time, she was saying, oh yeah, and I was saying, so I didn't volunteer to go. So something else that I found that I had an ability for was supervising people, not on a massive scale or a big scale or anything like that. I did the right thing, and I just instinctively. I remember at the hospital I was working at, Trinity Lutheran Hospital, they had several times participatory management thing for supervisors. They had me take that, and something else for managers or assistant managers. And I can especially remember I was like security officer. All the rest of the people in the class were, nursing managers and stuff like that. So when we would take a break for lunch or a little break or whatever, the nurses, who all were RNs and had, college degrees in it, and they were saying, "Wow, I've just learned so much," and going on every day, And I was thinking, I know it sounds arrogant of me, but I was thinking, I'm not learning anything. That's the way I do. I was a supervisor, in security. And I thought, that's the way I do things. And I was thinking to myself, I didn't say anything, that would have been rude. And also they wouldn't have, believed me probably. That was the way I did everything. And it just came natural. And then of course, when I've talked about that, so I won't talk about it again really, except to say, had more than one, had a director of security or whatever. And he was extremely racist. He was really smart. I mean, he could write material, write material. But he couldn't deal with, and he was an officer. I think he was a major in the Army. I think a major. Well, I can't be true. I'm not sure because I know he was in the military. But he lied about everything. I've mentioned this in regard to President Trump and the situation. And so back in the 70s, I was dealing with this director of security, and he lied about everything. And I thought, why is he lying about it? And I'd call him on it, and he would say, I could run in and give him examples, but anyway, I went through the grievance procedure 4 times with him, and I won. And but he continued with his. I mentioned too, I really kind of liked him, but I couldn't understand why he lied about everything, and how it was that he couldn't handle a situation. You know, he was director of security. I remember one time I was going by his office. I was going by his office. He said, "Jim, come on in here. I want to show you how you handle an employee or whatever." And it was a parking lot attendant, not from my shift. I had 7 that I supervised, and they had 2 on the second shift, and so I really didn't know this guy. I mean, you know, I knew him, but so he calls him in, and Mr. Ross says, I really couldn't tell what Mr. Ross was trying to correct and what he was, you know, but he, you know, and the guy said, "Take your finger out of my face," and to him, you know, and if I had known that he had, because of, you know, Donald Trump, there's books out, there's experts, doctors, everybody has talked about him, and then I see, bang, back in the 70s, I was dealing with a person like Donald Trump, except this Mr. Ross, the director of security. He was intelligent, articulate, but he had these problems, and I had no idea of, you know, that he, you know, had these conditions. And I'm sure Mr. Ross's I'm sure he had a high IQ, and I'm sure it was much higher than mine. Mine is always just, well, I've never had a real IQ test, except I've done it back in the past online, you know, and then I'm not sure I was doing video. Well, I was doing video forever, but, you know, it wasn't. I was using, you know, WordPress for years and other things for years and stuff. So when these things online came out, where you can take online, you know, an IQ test. I went to Catholic school, grade school and high school. We didn't do IQ tests. And when I went to community college, I don't think there was any IQ test either. But Mr. Ross, if I had known that the guy had problems, I would have just moved on someplace else. I had opportunities I turned down, which I really should have taken the job. I was offered a job. The guy, the director of security there at Johnson County, the community college, he was director of security or whatever, and he said, "Jim, if you want the job, you've got the job. You're hired if you want it." And then he said, "But let me tell you the downside." And he said, "You know, we try to do something, you know, parking, the sports fields here, you have to get a permit, you know, to go out there." And he said that the students, a bunch of them will just go out there and start playing on a field and that kind of stuff. Security will go down and say, you can't, you know, you need a permit. You can get the permit from so-and-so, you know, dean of students or dean of faculty or dean of whatever. And he says, one of them just goes, picks up the phone, calls, you know, and then that guy, you know, calls and says, "Let him do it." And he says, "That happens all the time." And I said, "I appreciate your honesty with me and everything." And I said, "I really would have a difficult time, you know, dealing with that. So I'm just, you know, I appreciate the offer, but I'm, you know." And he said, "Okay, you know." But Mr. Ross, when he wrote evaluations, you know, when you start, you get a 6-month evaluation written, you know, and that's, the more, the higher you're, you know, up to 7%. And I got 6.5 my first 6 months thing, just because I think he, you know, and then after that I got 7s, the most you could get. And the things he wrote about me were amazing, And I thought, that he got me there. And I never wanted to be a supervisor there too. But he was able to. I remember, that was when I was working the day. I hired in. I was working the day shift. I had no desire to be a supervisor. And then after 6 months or so, the supervisor quit or something. And it was on the second shift. And I didn't know. He offered it. He went to the day shift security, who was a female, by the way, officer, and told her he wanted me to, take that second shift position. He went to his lieutenant, who was terrified of, I've talked about that, he was terrified of the director of security and terrified he was going to lose his job and all that type of stuff. And both of them came to me, and Ursula came to me and put her arm around this female supervisor and said, Jim, Mr. Ross wants you to be a supervisor. And I said, no. And it was, but Mr. Ross wrote these merit reviews. Well, okay, that was, I thought, wow, because he said right off the bat, that, I was qualified to take his position when he advanced. Of course, I told him, "You're not going to advance. Where would you advance to here at this hospital?" He said, "Be a vice president." And I said, "They're not going to make you a vice president," and they didn't. But anyway, I didn't want, And then he said, "Well, Jim, could you do me a favor? There's these 2 security officers on the second shift, and they both are police officers for UMKC, University of Missouri, Kansas City. And I've got problems with them on the second shift. Would you go over and take care of those problems?" And he knew. He had me that, a problem to be solved, and things that need to be taken care of. And I went over and took care of them right away. And then I ended up 2 or 3 years second shift supervisor. And anyway, I have been talking. Wow, it's only 33 minutes. For some reason, when I'm talking like this, I think, my God, these people have been listening to me for a couple hours or something. But anyway, I found out that I could manage people, and I knew how. One reason might be my father was, I was too, eventually. My father was a Boilermaker, and then there was corruption in the union, local union. And he fought. It took a lot of courage, really. He went to all the meetings and stood up, and he, learned about Taft-Hartley Act and Landon-Griffin Bill and all these things having to do with government, things having to do with unions, and he made the union follow the rules. And there were things like he was entitled to a list of union members, since he was trying to, and things like that. Anyway, I helped my father. I was in high school, but I helped him. I made posters, did all kinds of things for him, and did even some researching of stuff. And then my father got elected sergeant of arms or something. It was like, president, vice president, sergeant of arms, treasurer, or something like that, like that. And so he got elected. So then the business agent could appoint 2 assistants, and he appointed my dad as one. And so then just about every day there'd be information from the Labor Bureau, rules and regulations, and this is pre-computers, the book was like this big, and it would come, and it would say, take the following pages out of, your manual and insert these in that spot or whatever. So I would do that for my dad. Well, when I took those out, I would be reading the old ones that were being discarded and changed because of rulings, court rulings, or whatever, and then I would read the new ones that were going in. That may have had something to do with, but, so I found out that I had abilities. I had disabilities, like hearing, which I never thought about, and really nobody knew about that. Well, the small hospital that I worked at for 9 years, I think I went back for a 10th year. But anyway, the small hospital, because it was so small, we were like a family. That was a great time. It was 5 minutes from where I lived. I could see the hospital from where, and everything. But there, that's where my, it'd be like 3 o'clock in the morning, and but finally, eventually I picked up on it, But anyway, the ER doctor would be, the 2 nurses would be, and finally somebody would say, "Jim, what's that noise? Sounds like an alarm." And then I'd say, "Oh yeah, I'll go check." Anyway, I'd leave the emergency room, ground floor, walk halfway through the hospital, and then just barely hear the alarm going off. And I went over to plant operations and the boiler. There was no maintenance at night. I was it if it, really. And I go in and I'd start the boiler, because it'd gone off, stuff like that. But so then eventually I got where I could tell when people started. Then I'd head down to the, and the alarm was on the door of plant operate. When I got there, it was loud. Let me see. There we are. This is the power pack or whatever for solar panel. I actually have 2 of these, but the solar panel plugs into the back. It's big, and we can't. This is an apartment complex. We can't be. And this also looks like it's a super USB or power supply. Standby power supply. But to show you how bad my hearing was, back, I think about a year ago or something, maybe longer, I heard my ex-wife screaming, and I thought, my God, what's, and I go running in there, and she says, "Stop that sound, stop that sound." And I said, "What sound?" And she was like, good thing she didn't have a weapon, she'd probably, "That sound," and so then, oh, okay, it has to be this, I hit a button or something or other on it, and she's still screaming, and I said, "Did I turn it off?" "No," and then I hit another button, and then I said, "Is it off now?" And she looks at me like, "Are you?" It was off, but that range. Also, I always liked gadgets, of course. You would be surprised. You're not surprised, are you? I had the early, before cell phones, what do they call them? What was the name of that? I bought several of those. But then I also had like a Casio watch, and of course it had an alarm for various purposes or whatever. And I could not hear that sound either. So it's whatever that some range, And I mean, I'd get on an elevator when I was working at the small hospital I worked at, and there, I worked a night shift, and it was pretty quiet, and there wasn't, but, when I was working the main hospital, I'd get on the elevator, and people would be like, looking around because my Casio alarm was going off, and I could not hear it was going off. Also, my hearing loss was a problem when I went into a stairwell. And if there was a call on the radio, I could not hear it. Have you ever been like a railroad station or a airport or something, and the public address system comes on? And maybe because of where the speakers are located or something, it's like, garbage. Well, my hearing is that way. And so just being in a stairwell or in an elevator, because of sound was going in one ear and was going in the other ear, and it was being filtered, I didn't have a hearing aid or anything like that ever. I never had it treated. But, so I made sure that I was, I didn't want to be on an elevator or in a situation like that and have somebody call. Now, at the small hospital, I was the only security person there. But, at the big hospital or, places like that, I made very sure that I wasn't on an elevator and somebody is calling, 1099, emergency or something like that. So I made very sure that. Anyway, I'm worried about getting this desk put together tomorrow because of my arthritis, and so I think what I'm going to do is try to assemble the chair by putting the back and the seat and that type of stuff on the bed, maybe upside down or something, and then attaching the rest. I can't depend on my son for it. My daughter's in the process of moving, and she has a lot to do because she's doing it by herself. Her son, my grandson, is a grown man, but, well, he does a little bit, but basically not nearly as much as he should. So I know that if she knows about it, she'll want to help me put this chair together. I thought about it for the first time. They have a thing, $50, somebody will come out and put it together. So there are a lot of jobs out there that people can do. There's one. If I'm sure they need a lot of people for things like that, because all these things they sell, I think you see a thing a lot of times saying for X amount of money, do you want it, you're buying it, do you want it put together for you? And I'm a poor man, but I've thought about paying the $50, but the place is such a mess. And they would, of course, it says it has to be put together where you want it. So I want it in this room, so it would have to be put together here. But plus, the rest of the room, the rest of the place is kind of a disaster area. But probably a biohazard restriction. We're not, what do they call the people that collect stuff? Everything, But anyway, I thank you very much for watching, and I think I'm just going to upload this because I can upload it right away, and I'm not going to add the header onto it. So thank you very much for watching, or maybe listening. maybe this time of night, if you're in North America or whatever, you could probably lay down and my voice would probably put you to sleep. Anyway, thank you very much. Please, if you can, give a thumbs up. Also, the link that is below, if you use that link, it takes you to Amazon. It's a secure link. It takes you to Amazon, and while you're logged in, if you purchase anything, I get a small commission. For the last few months, I think I've gotten like $6 a month. But a while back, I was thanking you all very much because I had several months in a row there, and I think it was right before Christmas. And it may not have been this last Christmas, but I was getting like $60 a month, $70 a month, $80 a month. And to a poor man, that's actually a lot of money. So if you can use the link, it doesn't cost you anything. And I'd appreciate it very much. Thank you very much for watching.